Hey Dee, have you ever heard of squishmallows?
Aren't they stuffed animals? I think Maddie had a Minnie Mouse.
They are, and I was one of the gifts that I got my one great niece was a carrying case for mini squishmallows. I had never heard of them,
Okay,
but then
that's
my
really cute.
it is cute. Then my I didn't really even hardly look at it. I thought, oh, just another kid thing. Then my other great niece, who's almost 5, she walks in, she says, "Do you see my rosebud?" She had a rosebud squishmallow.
Okay, thanks. Now I want one.
Well, you could get Maddie one.
I could get, okay, I just looked at it. I gotta have one too. That is the cutest thing I've ever seen.
I knew you would want it.
Is it big or little?
It's
Is
it's
this a,
about 10 inches. It's fairly big.
well, Maddie's fifth birthday is just, you know, a
Around
few
the
days.
corner.
I mean, it's just around the corner of February. So I will be buying it as soon as we get off this
Oh, but wait a
podcast.
minute. There's a Christmas rosebud and there's also a Valentine's Day rosebud. So you might want to
Oh,
pick
she
the
has to have the Valentine's Day rosebud.
Exactly.
Of course
Anyway,
she does. Oh, this is too cute.
my work here is done, so we can now
Thanks.
start the episode. Go for it.
Welcome to the Garden Angelus, where we talk about flowers, veggies, squishmallows, and all the best dirt. I'm Dean Ash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden an acre and a half out of 7.5 acres out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
We call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening, and we want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee. I have one more thing to say about squishmallows.
Okay, go for it.
There's a strawberry one.
Oh my gosh.
There's a watermelon one. There's a
Well,
little
see, I'm now going to
cactus
buy them
one.
all.
I know, but anyway. Would you like to hear about my real garden update?
Sure. And you know what? You're going to get flack for this. Go for it.
What am I? Oh,
Not from me. Not from
anyway.
me, girlfriend. Not from me.
Well, the past 2 weeks since we haven't been recording, the weather has been actually fairly decent. So I've gone out to my garden just for like 15 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever time I had. And I've been cutting back some of the perennials and I just chop them up and leave the choppings right there at the base.
Right.
They'll break down to provide good mulch. And I was thinking about Rebecca McMacken, who had that TED talk about what they did at the Brooklyn Bridge Park, where they did that. And it
Yeah.
it's good for insects, birds. They brought back all kinds of wildlife. It reminds me a little bit too, as I listened to The Secret Garden on audiobook, because I'd never actually
Uh-huh.
read the whole thing.
Oh, I love the book. It's so
And
good.
she said something and it just struck and I stopped. I wrote it down and I wrote a blog post about it. It's like, let's not make it too, let's not make it too tidy. Anyway,
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
my most liked Instagram posts out there. So anyway,
Yeah. It's awesome. And then,
you remember smelly microgreens?
yeah, how'd that go?
That went into the trash finally because I come
You
into
just
my
couldn't
house and
save
think
them, could
I
you?
I could not save them. They just smelled like, well, our listeners don't need to hear what it smelled like, but
No, but you can figure it out. They smell, you know what they smelled like a bit? Like when you buy those bags of salad or boxes of salad and they're in your fridge too long and you open it up and you go, okay, those have to go. That,
and if it was a lot of cabbage and kale.
oh, sweet Lord. Okay, good thing those went
Anyway,
away.
so I restarted with soil. They're growing really good. I've got a little supply going, putting them on my salad. I also
Nice.
enjoyed my poinsettia reblooming, which had way more color than I expected. I've posted it
That's
enough on
fun.
Instagram that you've seen it, but I've
Yep.
decided I'm going to keep it growing for next year.
You also had snowdrops.
Yeah, I have snowdrops, Christmas roses, and a few pansies in bloom on Christmas Day, which I
I
was,
have pansies. My pansies
uh,
are doing great. Oh,
they're
you know
now
what? I bet
frozen.
you.
They're frozen now.
Well, mine are tomorrow. Tomorrow we're getting a big weather system coming in. Out front, I bet you I have hellebore Niger too. Christmas rose. I
I
bet I
bet you do
do.
too. I bet you do.
Yeah. So, and then you did Christmas, right?
I did Christmas. I did New
With
Year's.
the
I did all the
fam,
thing. Huh?
with the family.
Yep, with the family. That's how I saw the squishmallows. And
I get that for Maddie.
Yesterday was beautiful. I got all the Christmas lights outside down and everything put away. So before the big, well, we'll talk about that later. How about you had an interesting 2 weeks. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it's been hard. But I want to talk about something fun first. So, I gave Maddie those wax colored amaryllises,
Yes.
3 of them, and she carried them around the house. They bloomed. She's thrilled. She came over the other day and she said, Gigi, yours are looking sad like mine. I said, you know what? Flowers get done and then they're over. It's okay. I go, but guess what? I have an amaryllis I planted for you. And I gave her one that's just starting to come up. And I
Oh,
said, just
nice.
take this home. Don't water it too much so you don't get fruit gnats. And she goes, okay. And she was very happy. So that was a good thing. And I showed her all the ones that I had blooming the second tier that are regular ones I planted. And she
Sure.
goes, these look pretty good. She goes, don't you think we should move them where we can see them? I said, yes, we should. Basically, I have this little gardener who tells me what to do. So there was that. Also, let's see. I don't know when this all started, but Bill had surgery on his back and then we found out something called a seroma. He had to go back into the hospital. And so he ended up in the rehab hospital and we got him out for Christmas Eve. So
Yay.
my Christmas time was weird but we still celebrate Christmas and it was all good. And then he is slowly getting better, slowly. Back surgery is not for the faint of heart.
It is
And
not.
then, and I'll tell you about my rabbit hole. Remind me about rabbit holes and growing older because I didn't write down a rabbit hole, but I do have one.
I'm
And
making a
then
note.
I read The Pearl, which is a novella by John Steinbeck for Well Read Mom Book Club, which we meet on Saturday. My group does. And I loved it. It was really good. It was about 150 pages. And then now I'm reading The Father's Tale, which is the book for February. It's a mere over 1,000 pages long. So we went from the novella to the 1,000-page book. And other updates, I'm watering all my houseplants, and I bought another one of those watering cans that's plastic that I bought 2 years ago for the back of the house.
Right.
Well, I got tired of carrying it back and forth, so I'm going to have one at each end of the house because I have plants at each end of the house. And I already got us a link to it on Amazon. It's like $15. It's plastic. It's made in the United States. It's light blue, and it has the perfect pouring spout, so it doesn't drip.
That's
So many
real
water
nice.
cans and teapots drip. You do not want those. And let's see, I'm keeping things alive in the greenhouse, and I'm going to watch this next cold snap and hope that the propane holds out because I don't think the electric heaters can keep it warm enough. But we'll just see what happens because, well, that's a long story we don't have to go into. All right, let's play favorites.
Well, before we do, you said your watering can is light blue?
Yeah. Don't you have one?
Not like that, but you can save almost $4 if you buy the red one instead on Amazon. Just saying.
Oh, well, I didn't see the red one. So I bought another light blue one, and that's okay. $4. Well, there you go. Red's cute. Red would be cuter.
Yeah. Either one would be nice. All right,
Okay.
let's play favorites.
So do you want me to play favorites first or you?
Yeah, mine's kind of boring. Same old, same old.
So I bought this, and it's to my left while we're recording. I bought this polka dot, I don't remember the name of it, begonia at Walmart, and it was just a little tiny thing.
Uh-huh.
This plant has gone crazy in this east facing window. Let me make sure that's right. Yeah, it's east facing. So morning sun, and it sits on my desk, and I love this thing. I mean, it is so cute. I mean, occasionally it gets too dry and the ends of the leaves burn a little bit, but you know what? It's doing really, really well. And I'll take a picture of it for the newsletter. That's my favorite this week.
Excellent. Well, my favorite is the snowdrops again. I have the one clump that's been blooming for, I think, almost a month. And then I noticed this morning a second clump has got buds on it. So I don't know what'll happen in the coming week, but the snowdrops for winter interest, they can't be beat.
No, they're wonderful. And did you bring in any of your lily of the valley?
Not yet. I mean,
I
that's
didn't
something
either.
I might do it. That's a good reminder. I'm going to make a note to myself.
Probably not bring it in because I still have that fragrance allergy thing going. And so I'm going to just hold off on that for now and see what happens.
Well, if I do
later.
it's going to have to be this weekend.
Soon.
We are recording on Friday the 3rd before things really go, I would say go south, but actually they go north.
Yeah.
And the ground is going to be, I think, pretty much frozen here in a little bit. So anyway.
Well, we're going to be in the teens starting tomorrow night and be in the teens for a while. So it's going to be really cold here too. Today is my son's birthday.
Happy birthday to your son.
He is 30 years old. It's hard to believe.
Oh
right?
my goodness. Yes,
Well,
I was looking.
that's all.
ridiculous.
He's one of my favorites too. So it counts for this segment.
There you go. Question of the week we got from Judy in West Tennessee. She sent us an email and she said, suggestions for flowers for winter sowing.
Yeah. So West Tennessee. And you had some.
So I am going to be winter sowing, and we'll talk about this in my garden commissions later. But I winter sow, I'm mostly perennials and biennials, and then I listed a few annuals, but I'm going to winter sow hollyhocks, delphiniums, verbena, foxglove, poppies. And then I'm also probably going to do maybe some alyssum, some snapdragons, though I probably will start them later in the spring. The perennials I can put out at any time.
Yeah, you can do them right now. And I know a
Alyssum,
lot of people who do them.
snapdragons. Yeah.
You're going to do your verbena,
Bampton.
Verbena Bampton. Yeah, Veneriensis Bampton. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to, the seeds I collected, petunia seeds. Did I collect petunia seeds? Oh, I forgot. I collected geranium seeds, pelargonium seeds.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got to go through all those seeds I collected, all those seeds I bought. But basically, perennials, biennials are excellent for winter sowing. And then I say cold resistant annuals like alyssum, snapdragons, petunias, and then cold crops like cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. That's what I'd do.
And meanwhile, in my cold frames, which I will close tomorrow night, they've been open all winter because we've been really warm. I have a nice crop of red lettuce growing. And so I need to cover those. And I also needed to get my hoops out if I want to and cover my kale and also cover I have some Brussels sprouts out there that I sowed in fall and my collards in my long beds. I think if I cover them, it'll help. I don't think they may still freeze because they're in containers. So you aren't getting it all the way to the warmth of the ground. But it's been so warm in Oklahoma, who knows? I don't ever have hard and fast answers for these things, but I wanted to mention the lady, and I can't remember her name right now, who winter sows in Ziploc bags on Instagram. She takes those bamboo poles, laces the Ziplocs through them, puts soil in the bottom, opens the Ziplocs, and leaves them open so that they get rain and they can expire moisture. And we can link to her in the newsletter. I'm sure she has other suggestions.
So are you going to try some Ziploc bags?
I don't know. I mean, one of the problems I have with Ziploc bags is they do have mammal in them because that's how they slip. So probably not. Now, the hefty bags, according to what I contacted the manufacturer, there's 2 goldfinches and a house finch out on the bird feeder right now. They managed to get by the big birds, and that little house finch is really pretty. Of course, the goldfinches look like blah because, it's winter. Anyway, sorry, got diverted. I probably won't.
You got diverted, not diverted, diverted.
I got diverted. Okay, shall we move on and do a quote?
I will. But first you got to tell your crow story that you sent me a text about it.
That was funny. So for a while there, while Bill was in and out of the hospital, I was carrying in the bird feeders at night to stop the raccoons and then carrying them out in the mornings. And I am not a morning person. It takes 2 good cups of coffee before I feel like getting out in the 30-degree temperatures to take the birds their food. So I noticed the little birds were gathering on the branches and looking in at me through the French doors. And I was like, I'll get to it. Well, then all of a sudden they went away and here comes a crow. And I have this family of crows, which I was watching just a few minutes ago too. And they, it's funny because all of a sudden there was one, and then there was like five, and they all started cawing at me
A
specifically.
murder
They
of
knew it was
crows.
time. Yeah, I had a murder of crows, and they were out there cawing at me, telling me to get off my buns and go out there and put out the bird feeders. So I said, okay, I will. And I went out there and put out the bird feeders, and they waited for me to finish it, and then they all flew away. So the
I
little
think
birds sent in the big birds.
I think that's great. Now I will do a quote. Hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering, "It will be happier." Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Thank you, Lord Tennyson. We needed to hear that. Our
Exactly.
flower this week, are we going to do a series?
A
Or
series
is
from
this
the National Garden Bureau has the year of, and they have
the
perennials,
flowers?
annuals, flowers. So it's the year of the caladium, Dee.
And I love caladiums. So I'm kind of excited to see that actually because hybridizers have been doing a lot of breeding with caladiums and we have more choices than we ever had before. And you can start ordering the bulbs now. And maybe they aren't really a bulb. Maybe they're a corm. Are they a corm?
Well, the National Garden Bureau has a most excellent website
Good.
article about the caladiums, and they referred to them as bulbs, but that may
Okay.
be just because it's easier to.
Colloquial.
Yes, that was the word I was thinking of. So they
In
gave
any
us
event,
three facts you would want to know about the caladiums.
please
One,
go ahead.
they are native to the tropical forests of South and Central America.
Which
High
means they
heat,
like shade and warm temperatures.
high humidity.
High water.
Now, here they said tubers. European horticulturalists have been cultivating them from tubers for their striking foliage since the 1700s.
So they're tubers,
But the United States was
basically.
behind. It was in 1893. Caladiums made an appearance at Chicago's World Fair, thanks to the efforts of Adolf Litzy, a German plant breeder living in the Amazon.
Thank you,
And
Adolf.
after World War II, breeders began growing caladiums in Florida, and now Lake Placid, Florida is the caladium capital of the world, producing more than 90% of the world's caladiums.
Yeah, they produce them almost all. I knew that because I looked it up last year. And I think that caladiums really get overlooked because I think people got used to them just being white or red, but you can get them in lots of different shades now. There are a bunch of the oranges, there's a bunch of the lime greens. I mean, there's a lot you can do with caladiums. The thing about caladiums is you want it to be nice and warm when you plant those outside, whether you do the corms or you actually do the plants. And last year, our local nursery up in Guthrie, which is terracotta, but it's owned by Red Dirt Plants. They brought in a ton of gorgeous caladiums, and I went crazy and bought tons of them. I had them in pots, I had them in the ground, and they made me so very, very happy.
Yes. Now, on the website, there are two basic kinds of caladiums: strap or lance leaf, and then fancy. I think we tend to like the fancies.
I'm
We are
fancy
we
all the
fancy
way.
people.
We
They have
are.
one on the that I want called Vava Violet. Of course, I want that one. It is beautiful.
Well, I need to see it, so you need to put a link in.
I will
So,
put a link so people can see Vava Violet. And I bet you National Garden Bureau would like it if we use that photo on the newsletter. So maybe we will.
yeah, we might as well. That would be awesome. So that caladiums are great. They grow exactly, in my opinion, they take the exact same conditions as elephant ears.
I would think that that's probably correct. And
I mean,
then,
I grow a lot of both. So
but
I feel pretty
these,
I feel pretty confident about
yes,
my caladium and elephant ear information.
caladiums like it warm. And so they said soil temperatures have to be 70 degrees in
Hmm.
order to get that. Now they call it a bulb. We've said tuber, corm, and bulb. I think it's tuber.
I think it's tuber, like a potato.
Anyway, if you put it in cool soil, it just rots. This is not a problem for me. Do you know why this is not a problem for me?
Because you have a soil thermometer.
Nope.
Oh, why?
Because I buy them already grown by somebody else. I'm just, my little head is turned by the leaves.
The ones I bought last year, I did buy some of the tubers, had them shipped, and you can pot them up in the greenhouse ahead of time if you want to. I waited and put them in the ground, and they were very slow to come up. But the ones that were already up, who someone else started in their greenhouse, took off like gangbusters, and I put them all in my front because they are absolutely no care and they're colorful, just like coleus, just like
Yes.
elephant ears.
So they like filtered sunlight or light afternoon shade. Some will tolerate full sun.
Not
Fertilize.
in Oklahoma.
No, not your hot sun in Oklahoma. Shelter from
No.
winds so they don't dry out. Moist but not sopping wet. Anyway, they are pretty easy, and especially if you have more shady conditions. And the last thing is probably the best piece of advice for people like me. Treat them as annuals and just buy
Yeah,
new in the
unless you want to
spring.
bring them in the house. And people ask me that every year. Do you bring in your caladiums? Do you bring in your coleus? Do you bring in your elephant ears? So to answer that question, no to the caladiums. I did not dig those up. I did not want to. I might want to change my mind next year. The elephant ears, my husband took them all out of the pond and they're sitting in the basement where I have to add water to them, which makes me grumpy. So I wish we hadn't. Then in the greenhouse, I did bring in just a few of my coleus. Here's the thing. They get mealybugs really bad, so they might get tossed out before the season's over.
They might be gone. But anyway, it is the year of the caladium. So I think in honor of the year of the caladium, we should all plant some, which we do anyway. So I'm going to get some more. I only bought a couple last year. My little head was turned by some pretty big, fancy leaves. So I'll get
Oh,
some
I love
more.
them.
I
No,
want
I love
Vava
them.
Violet.
I think you should get it. Why not? Enjoy.
Why not?
Life's short.
Why not do a quote and do the vegetable?
So we read this book last year for Well Read Mom. It's a small book, very hard to read. For last year's words belong to last year's language, and next year's words await another voice. T.S. Eliot, The Four Quartets. Hard book to read, but it's quoted everywhere, which is why I guess we read it.
You know,
Vegetable,
before you go there, didn't Barbara Pym, that author I read all her books, didn't she write a book called Four Quartets?
maybe. I
I
don't
think so.
know.
I think it was kind of a depressing book about, if that's the right one, anyway, about four people that worked in an office, and it was kind of
She always writes about single people whose lives don't go anywhere. She's kind of a sad writer, in my
she
opinion.
is. But anyway,
I'm not reading her this year. All right, our vegetable for this week, we're still doing our unique herbs, and this is number 3, and it's comfrey.
do you grow it, Dee?
I I don't think so.
So comfrey to me sounds like the name for a butler. And
Yeah,
I
it
could just see,
does.
I could just see me saying, Comfrey, when the mail comes, please dispatch the bills to the house manager to deal with, but first bring me all the seed catalogs. And Comfrey, as per usual, if any of the pages are wrinkled, do iron them first. And let the greenhouse manager know I have some ideas to discuss for the spring garden. Thank you, Comfrey. You are dismissed.
You would love to have staff, wouldn't you?
Comfrey is the name of my butler now.
Okay, awesome. So back to comfrey, the plant. It is Symphytum officinale.
I would say Symphytum officinale as well.
So you wrote in here, why would you grow it? Because it's perennial and invasive.
So,
Maybe
yeah,
not.
I found 3 articles, so we'll link to all 3 just to give you a taste of it. But don't get a taste of it
A
because
taste of
in
comfrey.
in the spruce article, it's considered toxic. So you would not grow comfrey to eat.
No, but isn't it like a bandage or something or some kind of
Yes,
a
yes,
poultice or something? Yeah.
yes. That's the second article. Some herbalists make poultices to like
Draw
mend
out.
broken bones, but
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the
because
doctor.
because it's
I have broken
considered
bones.
toxic, you shouldn't put it on like an open wound. So that
Good Lord.
article, anyway. And then,
Oh, okay. So here's the thing, the part about the compost tea or to
yes,
add to because they do that in England all the time. They grow
yes,
comfrey to put it in to make a tea out of it. Monty Don does it. I've heard him do
yes,
it.
that's where it comes in. And so it's high in nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, or it increases it. And so some people will put it into their compost pile, or like you said, they make a compost tea out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah.
would be a reason to grow it. It also, I think it has blue flowers.
Okay, but as you wrote in here, because I don't want to make it sound like I wrote in here, just grow borage. We could talk about
Yes,
borage next week. It's an unusual herb.
it
It is
is.
not invasive.
Well,
It's aggressive. It self
it's easier
sows.
to plop out. Another
Yeah.
word for comfrey was blackroot. Has a black root.
Yeah.
Ew. Anyway, I have
I'm
never
not
grown
growing it.
comfrey.
I'm not doing it.
I read about it and I think I should grow comfrey for my compost pile. And then I think, no, no, I should not.
No. No, because if it has any invasive qualities at all, I don't need it here. I need stuff that
No.
well behaved.
So we
So
will ask our listeners if anybody is growing comfrey. We'll link to these three articles so that they can think about comfrey, or they can just assume that, comfrey is the name of my butler.
there you go. How about you do the next quote?
Be at war with your vices, at peace with your neighbors, and let every new year find you a better man. Benjamin Franklin.
So that takes us to our bookshelf, and you have the book this week, and
I
it is
do.
called Plant Words, a book of 250 curious words for plant lovers by Joe, I'm going to say it's Richome, and Emma Wayland. I probably butchered Joe's name. Sorry. So you
Yes.
discovered this book. Where'd you discover it?
You know what? One of my New Year's resolutions is to take better notes of where I have made these discoveries. So I
Did
think
you
I
not go to
must.
Wild Geese Bookshop and find it? Because you were
No, I
there
didn't
one
find it.
day.
I haven't been down there in a while. I'm probably going to go in the next week or so, but
I could
um
go with you.
yeah,
Alas.
we could say, "Hey, you need more gardening books."
I went into my local bookstore, the one that's down in Oklahoma City, and I walked in and I'd forgotten that they have a cafe. And I walked in, smelled them cooking food, and walked directly out and
Oh
said,
yeah.
shoot,
Yeah.
well,
That's
there goes that. There goes that place to go to. Oh, well, alas,
so
alack.
anyway, Plant Words is a little book that I discovered somewhere along the way and I bought it. It's fun to read through. It has little tips and trivia. And if you're thinking you're going to pick up your phone and do mindless scrolling, you could just pick up this book and you could read through. Chapters are called botany, so that's all the different plant parts.
Yep,
Growing, which is all the words you use for growing. Plant types. Yeah, so you can learn about what are geophytes. Do you know
good.
what do you know what geophytes are?
We've talked about them before, but right
No, we
now it
have not.
escapes me. Yes, we have.
Geophytes are the mechanisms that foods have for storing water and food underground in a specialized storage organ. It's basically bulbs, corms, rhizomes, stuff like
That's when
that.
we talked about them when we talked about bulbs. We mentioned geophytes, but I forgot. Anyway, who is Marianne North, you might ask?
So that's the chapter in history, and Marianne North is and I already knew who she was. She's a famous artist, and she has a collection of her botanically themed oil paintings are resided in a dedicated gallery at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Kew.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, because people say, well, is Marianne North a lost lady of garden writing? I'm like, well, she's British. No. Then
Yeah, she's not
there's,
lost. That's for
there's,
sure. And I've been to Kew. It's a big
anyway,
place.
there's several other chapters and they've kind of got it all divided. And so you can just sort of, it's a browsing book. And one other thing I found, has in the geography part, it's like, where is Cape Flora and why does it matter?
Why does it matter?
So it's the term describes the distinctive flora that evolved at the southern tip of the African continent. Beyond the famous fynbos, I don't know what that is. That's a word that's in here somewhere. The Cape flora comprises several habitats and is the smallest of the six floral kingdoms of the world, which are areas recognized for their rare status globally, their very high level of endemic species and families, and their general richness of biodiversity. And
Okay.
they're one of the distinctive crops that comes from Cape Flora.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to pronounce this correctly. Rooibos tea, rooibos
Oh,
tea,
root. Yeah, it's
rooibos tea,
Roybos. Like
robust
king,
tea,
like the king of teas. Yeah.
Rooibost is from Cape Flora.
Huh.
they have to balance the pressure of tourism with the need to publicize and protect the area. It's a delicate and challenging task. So anyway, that is
Interesting.
this book. And like I say, it is interesting. It gives you a lot of things to think about. And like I said, it's better sometimes to pick up a book than scroll through your phone. Make a great gift for an experienced gardener because they don't know everything, or new gardeners who are just discovering the very, very fascinating world of plants.
There you go. All
Anyway,
good things, right?
that's right. Plant Words, a book of 250 curious words for plant lovers by Joe Rishome and Emma Wayland. We'll leave links.
Okay, cool. I
Quote,
have a quote, don't I?
you do.
Okay. May the new year bring you courage to break your resolutions early. My own plan is to swear off every kind of virtue so that I triumph even when I fail. Aleister Crowley from Moonchild. That's hilarious.
That is excellent. You found our
So for our
dirt.
dirt, we
Yeah.
thought we would talk about our colors of the year.
Well, first we were just going to talk and make fun of Pantone, who came up with a dull brown color of the year, and they call it mocha mousse.
It's
And
gross.
from Real Simple Magazine, they said it's a warm, soft brown that reminds us of a beverage we want to drink, a dessert we want to indulge in, and a luxurious velvet textile we want to wrap ourselves in, or dirt. Not
It could be dirt or poop for that matter. So
we
because
don't like it.
when you sent me the link, I just sent you back the poop emoji. And then so you wrote whatever. But then Etsy, in all their wisdom, sent me a deal that's a much better color of the year, and it's called lime cream.
Yes.
You want to
And
read that one?
they wrote, in a world that often feels chaotic, we're embracing the beauty of calm, the pursuit of finding glimmers of joy in the everyday, and the desire to create spaces that feel like a respite as we move into pastures anew.
And they also wrote, soft and serene, yet still with a touch of zesty fun and flirtiness, this hue evokes feelings of abundance, peace, and refreshment. This soft green almost acts as a neutral, sort of like the mocha mousse, pairing and layering easily with a multitude of colors, and its versatility carries seamlessly through the seasons.
We like lime cream much, 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 much better than mocha mousse.
Yes, and if you put them together, they're leaves and dirt. So there you go. They fit right into our normal stuff.
Exactly. Now I'll do a
But I do
quote.
love the lime cream. I love what Etsy showed me for lime cream. I was like, yes, yes, show me more. Show me more.
Yes, yes. Comfrey, could you pull up the Etsy website for me?
I want to look at lime cream.
Here's my
Okay, we got
quote.
another quote.
And suddenly, it's time to start something new and trust the magic of beginnings. Meister Eckhart.
I like it. So rabbit holes. I've got mine down. I told you to remind me, and then I remembered. So mine has nothing to do with gardening, but I keep telling Bill Nash that we need a house that is flat because this house was built by people who wanted a sunken living room. Now, that was before I came, but sunken living rooms were all the rage in 1981 when this house was built. And we also have it's really hard because we have stairs in our dog run between the garage and the house. So Bill is having a hard time. And so I just keep saying, flat surfaces, a flat house. That's what we need. So, in connection with that, I guess my rabbit hole is I've been going down watching these shows. I've been really interested in these great, quirky old people shows. And the first old people show is the Ted Danson show that came out on Netflix, which is absolutely precious. And it's called An Inside Man, I think. I'll look up the actual title for the newsletter, but it's precious. It's 8 episodes. It's about and it's based on a true story where they sent this guy into it was like a independent living center,
Uh-huh.
and somebody's jewelry had been stolen, and they sent him in as a detective. It's funny, heartwarming, sweet, and you also see what old people deal with because it's hard to be older, right? But you need to stay active. So there's that one. And then I was looking at AARP's magazine, Don't get me started. I'm too young for it, but not really. I think it's for 55-year-olds. Anyway, they had a movie reviews deal, and one of the movies was called Thelma. And
I
it's
heard
also
about that
based,
movie. I've seen the
it is
previews.
sweetness, sweetness. And it is, we watched it last night, and it really dealt with, I mean, the character in the movie is 93, and it's also based on a true story. And I don't want to give anything away, but she is precious, and Richard Roundtree is in it with her, and he used to play Shaft way back in the 70s, and he's in really good shape, but he's older too. And it's just about all the difficulties of growing older and yet still being you, which is something my husband is struggling with. He's only 70, but he's had a
Right.
series of health events. And so this is all, sorry, I just bumped the drawer, so it made that clacking noise. So I've been down a rabbit hole of old people shows, and I've loved them.
Well, I watched a couple of old movies. Now, I told you to watch Innocent Sinners. Did you like it?
I did like it. I felt like it was kind of slow at first, and I was like, gosh, this is really sad, but I loved the ending.
Yes, yes, Innocent Sinners, and it's like
It's
the
based on a Rumor Godden book.
yes, an episode of Sparrows, but it's really good. I also watched Christmas in Connecticut. Have you ever watched that Christmas movie?
I adore Christmas in Connecticut. It's one of my very favorite Christmas movies. It's sweet, it's charming, it's funny,
It
it's all the
reminds me.
things,
Okay, so that was 1945, and the
right?
premise is this writer for this magazine portrays herself as a wife, a mother, living on a farm in Connecticut. When
And
actually,
she's also an amazing cook, which she doesn't cook.
yeah, but she's actually a single lady that lives in an apartment in New York City who's made the whole thing
Hmm.
up. Well, the publisher of the magazine wants her to entertain a war hero and invites himself to their Christmas in Connecticut. Anyway, so she has to find a farm, blah, blah, blah.
And
And it
fun
reminded me,
ensues. Let's just say that. So
yes,
fun.
somebody remade it in 92, and
Yes, I've seen that one.
I haven't seen that one, but I
Mhm.
think somebody should remake it. But instead of column writer for a magazine, they could pick an influencer who's living
Oh
a
my
fake
gosh, yeah.
life.
Okay, Meghan Markle has decided she's an influencer now.
Okay, so
So that would be a perfect, let them prove themselves. Although she does appear to be doing the things, but let's say that they are an influencer that's like Martha Stewart level, which is what Meghan Markle is showing herself to look like. That'd be funny.
it would be hilarious. So I think somebody needs to write a script.
It's a very fun movie, and you could watch it outside of Christmas too, because it's hilarious.
It is hilarious. So anyway, my rabbit hole, I started doing research. I'm going to go back to writing Lost Ladies every 2 weeks. I took off Christmas. I'm looking at Alice Morse Earle. Have you ever heard of her?
No.
Anyway, she wrote a book called Old Time Gardens, but she wrote it in 1901. And anyway,
Well, wonder
curious.
what what were old time gardens then?
It's
I
very
don't know.
interesting. And I correspond with another garden herbalist and
Hmm.
she's in her early 80s, and she said this was one of the most influential books she read. And so I'm like, that's
See, older
interesting.
people aren't boring.
We are we are not we are
We
not.
are not boring.
No.
Anyway.
Anyway, so then this isn't also gardening related, but I'm thinking about my reading goals for 2025. I read a lot in 2024. But anyway, I showed you a picture of it. I got this book called Women of the Catholic Imagination, 12 Inspired Novelists You Should Know, edited by Haley Stewart. And it includes people like Toni Morrison, Donna Tartt, of course, Rumer Godden, Flannery O'Connor.
Uh-huh. I've read Flannery O'Connor, I've read Donna Tartt, I've read Rimmer Godden. I've read Toni Morrison now that I think about it.
So I
Yeah.
just
I've never read Josephine
so I
Ward.
decided every month I'll read the next chapter about one of these writers and then find a book by them. Josephine Ward showed up first. She actually lived in the 1800s, and she was in England. So Catholics in England always had a hard time because of the,
Yeah, they
Church
did.
of England and all that.
Reformation.
That's the word. Anyway, so I read about her, and then I found that The one book that they recommended, or one of several, was One Poor Scruple. It was published in 1899. Thankfully, somebody republished it in 2023 as part of the Catholic Women Writers series. So I bought that because you're not going to find that anywhere. So I'll be
No.
reading Cozy Mysteries. I'll be reading tons of garden books, of course. And then
I'm putting together a puzzle that's a
that's
mystery.
cool.
It's almost finished. Yeah, my daughter bought it for me for
I've
Christmas.
seen those.
It's
They're
pretty
from
cool. It's
White
fun.
Mountain.
I don't know who this one is from, but I'm doing it without a picture.
Oh,
because you can't have a picture.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why it's taken me 4 or 5 days because it's not a very hard puzzle. But if I had and then it turns out in the bottom of the box, you do have a picture if you want to open it up, but then you'll know that you'll have already solved it. You see what I'm saying? And I'm almost finished. I bet I finished today, but I'm also trying to read that book. So I want this book too about the Catholic women writers. And then can I tell you what happened when I went to England and Bill and I went to so there's a very famous church that's outside of the Tower of London, which for people who haven't been to England, they think, at least I did. I thought the Tower of London was a tower. Well, it's not. It's actually a keep, a whole big
it's a
giant
prison.
thing, right? It's more than a prison. It's where the Queen's jewels have always been kept. It's where it's an armory. It has all their armament in there. It's a great big place. And then there is a jail within it. But right outside the walls is this famous church, and it was John Fisher's church and St. Thomas More's, St. John Fisher and St. Thomas More. So Bill and I decided to go see it, and they were executed by King Henry VIII. Okay. So we go inside, and of course, all the churches are stripped of all the ornament because they did that during the Reformation on a lot of churches. But we went down into the catacombs underneath, and there was a whole chapel that was dedicated to St. Clare, and it still had all of the stuff in it, like the window had a statue of something, I don't remember now, and a holy water font and all that kind of thing. And we went back upstairs and somebody greeted us. They don't really, well, they took out the pews too on some of these churches because they were too ornate. And they're like little places for where the statues were for Joseph and Mary, but they're gone. Those statues are gone. Anyway, we were standing there looking at it. And they came up to us and they said, I think they were like the sacristans, the people who kind of take care of the church. And they said, hi. They were so excited we were there. And I said, yeah, we're Catholic. And they both looked so sad. And they stood there for a minute and they said, we just want to say we're sorry. And I said, well, you didn't do it. I encountered that a lot in England, a lot of apologizing. And I'm like, you didn't have anything to do with it.
So that reminds me of two things, Dee. This morning on Instagram, I follow somebody that does like tours of London, even though I've never been.
I love tours of, I want that person.
He talked about outside of the Tower of London. He said there's a church and it's got a hidden museum in the basement. And you go down there and there's like Roman artifacts and all kinds of.
I bet it's that one.
It's got to be. And it's like, well,
it is. It's the oldest church in central
But he talks
London.
about how it really shows that London's like a city built on a city built on a city, that there's multiple layers as you go down. So I need to find that and share that with you, and I'll share it with our listeners.
Send it to me. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say is on Sunday afternoons, it's very restful, but I still get the YouTube video from Ben Matten, who is the Salisbury organist, and he goes to all these old churches.
I love him. And the ones that are on people's properties.
Well, a lot of them are kept by a group called Friends of Friendless Churches.
Friends of Friendless Churches. Yeah, it's very famous in England. I've been to some of those churches. Anyway, and they're awesome. They're so old, like, 1200s, 13th century.
Well, yeah, like part of it's the 13th century, and then he'll say, and then the Victorians redid part of it, and I kind of marry that up with some of reading these cozy mysteries that are set in Britain, and you're.
Oh, it's perfect. You need to go to Great Britain someday. You would love it. It's amazing. I've gotten to go many times. I hope I someday get to go again.
Anyway,
that's where I would go if I went overseas again.
Let's do garden missions.
Okay, I should have put this under the other part. I ordered some seeds. I tried to order these amazing zinnias off of Johnny's Seeds. They were already sold out. I think they were called Aurora. But I did order these other ones that were really cool. And then, of course, you sent me that link to Select Seeds in case I wanted to get some Bampton seeds. I actually saved some too that I'm going to sow, and I'm probably going to put them out there in just the cold. I may just sow them in my potager and then dig them up. I've done that before too. So that's the same way I do with poppies. But while I was on Select Seeds, I ordered some other seeds, and I can't even tell you what I ordered, but they're on their way. So I need to sow my onion seeds because I have these crazy Italian onion seeds that I need to
I
sow.
remember.
I love them. I'm going to sow those. And if I'm going to do that, I need to do that in the greenhouse like this week. I also needed to sow if I was going to do all those blue pansies, I did get them out, but I didn't get them in soil yet. But I might do that today. It's a little late, but they may still work because I did that last year.
Pansies and violas are really,
You're really supposed to do it. They take a long time. So you're really supposed to do it in the middle of December. But I was a little busy. Bill had to go back in the hospital. Things happened.
Yeah. And I listened to a podcast about it's professional growers, and they talked about growing pansies and violas and the new series that they have coming out and what's good about them. And I'm like,
oh, fun. I want to hear that.
Well, it's not that exciting of a podcast, but it just, anyway.
Okay. You know who else is starting podcasting? I meant to send this to you yesterday. Our friend Steve, the Grumpy Gardener. He's finally doing
everybody. Our friend
podcast.
Marianne Wilburn, she and Leslie Harris have rebooted Leslie's podcast.
Well, I will say to all of them, welcome to the podcast of fear.
Yes. Yes. And then I know a young gardener up, and she's also an editor up in Ontario, Canada. And she and a friend of hers have started a podcast called Plants Always Win. So anyway.
Oh, cute. Because plants do always win, ultimately. When we're all gone, there will still be plants. Oh, and there was something on. Oh, Bill, we were watching Landman, which is a Taylor Sheridan show, and we actually love it. It has Billy Bob Thornton. It's our favorite one. And they were talking about down in the basin, which is down in Texas. And Bill goes, just what happened down there? And I said, well, the fauna and the dinosaurs all died and became oil. And he goes, I said, it was a big area for dinosaurs and fauna. I said, flora wasn't here yet. And I go, so I paused it and I gave him a little lesson on fauna and flora. And when flora showed up and when butterflies showed up, and he just looked at me like, you're such a weirdo.
Yeah. Flora is the one of the undermaids at the estate that I've.
Well, I think fauna should be a gardener, like one of the under gardeners.
An apprentice gardener.
An apprentice gardener. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So what are you doing?
So I am waiting for the first big snow of the year. The forecasts are ever changing, but it looks like it's going to start Sunday evening, and it could bring 5 to 8 inches on the ground, which is quite a bit. And then the temperatures are not going to go above freezing at least through the 16th, which is how far out the forecast is. So here's 3 things I'm going to do. And I'm going to prep my containers for winter sowing. I've got the gallon jar. I was going to wash them out, punch holes in the bottom, cut them, get them ready. I may actually do some of the perennials and get them out there, but I'm just going to prep the containers, baby steps.
So I'm looking at our weather, and they're saying that we're going to get something. It could be snow on Sunday. They're not saying how much. It's a 70% chance, though. And the high will be 27.
So it'll be snow.
And the low will be 15.
It'll be snow.
And I mean, if water comes. And then on Saturday, it's going to get up to 50, and it'll start out as rain. And then it gets down to 44. So then Sunday night gets down to 15. And then Monday only gets up to 29 and stays at 18. You see the picture. We're going to be cold.
Well, and you would.
So I think the same storm.
You would be better off to have snow on the garden when it gets that cold than not.
Yeah. Amen, sister. That's when we run into trouble here. So you're busy.
Well, not really.
I think we better wrap this up.
I'm going to sort and organize seeds so I can decide what to buy. And then, I might end up down at Menards later to see what the seed display is out. I'm going to tend to my microgreens. And then I'm going to wrap up this podcast.
Okay, I'm sorry. I pushed you along. I didn't mean
That's
to.
okay.
Go
Thank you
ahead.
for listening to The Garden Angelus. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free Substack newsletter, and you should, you'll get a link to listen to the podcast a whole day early and links to everything we talk about in here.
And if you want to help support us, use our affiliate links. If you buy something and after clicking through on them, we're in a small commission and it costs you nothing extra.
Or you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
And we want to thank everyone who has done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting.
We so appreciate you. It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.